Okay, in terms of like this episode, I want it to be super structured, super informative, but because I've got pots, this isn't going to be structured or informative. It's going to be a mess. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the White Pube podcast. My name is Gabrielle Del Puente.
My name is Zarina Mohammed.
And we run a website together called The White Pube, where we publish writing about art and games and books and just everything. Whatever we want to write about. But we're not going to be discussing any reviews or anything like that on today's episode because we're going to be talking about my body. If you have been following us for the past year, or maybe this is news to you, I got COVID in January of 2021 and it was dog shit. And then things just got worse. So my 2021, looking back now, was a messy blur of long COVID, which is just a general term for people who get this virus and then get fucked up by it. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I could tell you the symptoms. I knew I had fatigue. I knew I had a lot of muscle pain. I knew I had heart palpitations and brain fog and probably a million other things that I can't remember at this point because I still have long COVID. And as that year unfolded, we were releasing podcast episodes that kind of detailed the weirdness of it and like the panic and the sadness of like becoming disabled. And we released a 1-year update in January of 2022. And then 1 week later, my diagnosis changed and we have yet to release an update. So this is it. My long COVID was revealed to be POTS. And I'm not going to say what POTS is straight away and reveal everything. I'm going to say that people should know what POTS is because it turns out a lot of people's long COVID is POTS. And for me, it took 1 whole year of diagnosis because my doctors didn't know what it is. I've heard from many other people who have gone through the exact same timeline, 1 year, a year and a half, of having all these horrible symptoms that are left completely unmedicated because either doctors don't know what it is or also just the general population, even though 0.2% of people have POTS. That's a crazy number, but it also is just on the cusp of us of being like not popular enough to be in like the general vernacular. If the paramedics that took me to hospital had known what to look for, I could have been diagnosed straight away. If the doctors had known what was going on, they could have diagnosed me and put me on medication and I wouldn't have lost months and months in the house, fucked up and in a very dark place. So yeah, today's episode is about POTS. What is POTS? I keep thinking, you know what, I've had POTS now for so long and no one's bought me a pot. Like, I should just get like a consolation pot.
Do you want like... Are you telling me that for Christmas you would like a POTS pot?
I would like a POTS pot, yeah. I want you to...
I'm going to make you a
POTS
pot.
I want you to make me one.
Fabulous.
That would be really nice.
I'm going to write that down. Hold on.
Write that down.
That's a Christmas present sorted.
So that's today's episode. And also just like a catch up because I'm probably sounding much more coherent than I was if you listened to the 1 year update. And this is why. I got a phone call from the long COVID clinic at the end of 2021. And it was just saying, you know, we want you to come in for an in-person appointment. And I had only had one phone appointment and it was disastrous. These people, this horrible man on the phone, told me that long COVID was a very British thing, insinuating that just because we have like a healthcare system and social welfare, that people were like going on the sick. in order to get benefits. That phone call was horrible. And when I said to him, you know, can you do anything about the muscle pain I'm feeling? He said, well, we can't really treat pain. Everyone's pain is different. I was like, how the fuck are you a doctor? He should be fired. So I got this phone call from the long COVID clinic, and I was so confused because I was like, I don't want to speak to these people ever again. But it was somebody else, and they were saying, okay, well, we want you to come in for an in-person appointment. And at that point I was so like hopeless that I thought, okay, this is one more thing that I do, I'll go along to it, whatever. It wasn't in the same address that I'd seen them situated at before, and it was a doctor who I didn't know, and he said, hello, I'm the new long COVID clinic doctor in Liverpool. I've taken over from the last one because the last one got so many complaints. I was like, I was one of those complaints. This is great. I love it when criticism works. And he asked me to like tell him my symptoms from start to finish. Felt really attentive. And then he just looked at me and he said, right, there are different things that long COVID can be. And he said, according to the research that him and his team had been doing, it sort of falls into a few different categories. For some people, it really affects their respiratory system. For others, it's really a case of energy. So people with chronic fatigue, he said for others, they seem to be falling in a dysautonomic category. And then he looked at me and he said, that's what you're in. So dysautonomia refers to the autonomic nervous system. So all the stuff that your body should just get on with, all the little jobs, heat regulation, digestion, you know, heart rate, all the good stuff that we just do without thinking. Dysautonomia is when that goes wrong. He said your symptoms point to dysautonomia, and in particular, they point to a condition called POTS. And the name rang a bell because I'd seen like a few tweets about long COVID and POTS, and it's hard to like look back at this because it just feels painful and like cruel. But I remember going to my GP, and every single time I'd go with this big long list, like, please help me. And I remember saying, you know, one of the things that I've heard about is this thing called POTS, and like maybe that's what I've got, and can you do a test? And she just looked at me and she said, no, we can't do a test for that. It would take you months and months to get tested for POTS. And I thought, oh, okay, it would take me months and months to get tested for POTS. So, you know, she's the doctor, and now that she said that, that's the law. Because I was just so, I don't know, I was just so vulnerable and like out of it and not able to advocate for myself because I had no energy or brain power or confidence, or I don't know, when you're sick with something and you don't know the name of it, it's hard to be like, it's hard to insist, I think, because you're just sad. So when the long COVID clinic guy was like, sounds like you've got POTS, my first thought was, okay, well, I'm sure this is going to take another 6 months to get to the bottom of. And it took 10 minutes. So this guy, I wish I knew his name, handsome guy, handsome doctor, walked out to the appointment just in love. He got me to lie down on a table, and he took my heart rate and he took my blood pressure, and then he got me, after it was completely, you know, I was completely in a restful state for like 5 minutes, he got me to stand up, and he actually just said lean against the wall, and I still had all the bits on me so that he could measure my body and what was going on. And I didn't know what he was looking for, but he said, after a few, you know, about 2-3 minutes, he was like, how are you feeling? And I was starting to get really dizzy. And I felt like I needed to stay standing up. I was like, okay, he's doing this test, I need to stay standing up. I was just getting so dizzy. He was like, okay, you've got POTS. And I know I've said POTS a million times and I've still not described what it is, but I will now. He sat me down, he like let me catch my breath a little bit. And considering I was just like out of breath and dizzy from standing up, that's how bad of a state I was in last year. For anyone, again, who didn't listen to any of the earlier episodes where we go through the shitty year I had. Like I ended up for about 6 months not being able to leave the house because I was so tired. So that was the state I was in. He sat me down. He said, okay, POTS is a condition that stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Postural refers to your posture. Orthostatic means in an upright position. Tachycardia is when your heart rate goes too fast. And a syndrome is something that, I don't really know what a syndrome is. We know what syndromes are. And he said to me that that's caused by a dysautonomic condition. It is a dysautonomic condition. And it is most notable for an increase in heart rate by 30 beats per minute as a minimum on standing up. So because I was completely unmedicated last year, every time I tried to move, my heart rate was spiking. Like, yeah, and because it was spiking so much, I was having all of this like endless fatigue because my body was like overexerting itself by doing like the littlest amounts of activity. And all I knew was that I was tired and I was in pain and I didn't know the cause. I couldn't figure out, I can't look inside my body. I don't know these things. So it drove me mental. And it was kind of interesting because he then went on to say that, it's not just your heart rate that's affected by this. He said, how have you been dealing with temperature? And I said, well, as soon as the summer picked up last year, that's when I became housebound. That's when I was basically bedridden. All I remember last summer is I lay in bed, I watched the entirety of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills from start to finish, and I also watched every single Olympic event because I was in bed. I had nothing else to do. Great TV choices, but also bullshit. Prison life. He said that dysautonomia affects how your body regulates temperature. It can't regulate temperature. And also if you think that every time I move, my heart rate spikes by a minimum of 30 beats, that is raising my temperature as well. So it's just a mess. He asked if I'd, because he'd gone down the list of symptoms after asking me, he then pointed out when I'd mentioned muscle pain and I'd said, it's all in my legs. And he explained that with POTS, victims, oh my God, patients.
I know you mean, yeah.
Patients have a lower blood volume than regular people. And because of issues with the heart, if you're in one place, for example, if you're sat down in a chair like I am right now, the blood will sink to my legs. And especially if I'm stood up, it will sink to my legs quite quickly, and that will make me dizzy. And that's why the heart overexerts itself to try and pump the blood around more efficiently. But he said because the blood sinks into the legs, that it makes a buildup of adrenaline happen, and then that's the pain that is like spiking my legs. So adrenaline sounds like a great thing. I've been an adrenaline junkie for my whole life, big on roller coasters, obsessed. This was not a good type of adrenaline. This was like genuinely painful. And actually like a lot of the conversations I'd have with doctors over the past 12 months before this long COVID clinic appointment were about pain management. They were giving me like all these different types of painkillers and nothing was working. I was like on the highest levels of codeine and I was like, my legs are in agony. And now I know it wasn't something that pain relief could have done anything for, because it was about circulation. And I was in like a terrible, horrible cycle that I didn't know anything about, whereby I couldn't move much. So the blood was pooling in my legs. And if only I'd have known to move more, I could have got the blood moving, but I couldn't move more because I was so fatigued. And every time I did try to do something, the fatigue got worse. So it was like black hole.
It's just like a vicious cycle, right? Like a vicious cycle? Vicious circle. Like each symptom kind of aggravates each other. Aggravates. That doesn't make grammatical sense. The symptoms kind of compound each other, right?
100%. Yeah. So, yeah, we'd sorted the diagnosis so fast. The GP's fucking 6 months. I'm not going to give you a diagnosis bullshit. It was just like a lie because this guy just took my heart rate. My heart rate also at that point was 92 at rest. And when I stood up, it went to 130 something, 137. Like, that was just a casual me going, like, sit, stand. Like, it's so bad.
You just stand up and have done like 30 minutes of cardio.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my God.
So I said, okay, what are we going to do? Like, I was like, can this be cured? Like, I need help. It can't be cured, unfortunately. That would have been a great podcast update.
I'm fixed.
I'm fixed. No, he was like, no, it can't be cured. It is early days. People have gotten POTS off the back of flus and other viruses, and also pregnancy, forever. So yeah, I was asking like, okay, what do we do? What's the management? And he said, because your heart rate is one of the biggest issues, we put people with POTS on beta blockers. And beta blockers are essentially just like a pill you take once or twice a day that slow your heart rate down. People actually take them for anxiety and migraines and plenty of other conditions.
I didn't know that.
What I've learned is that there are no specific medicines for POTS. There are medicines for like plenty of other diseases, and doctors just have to like pull from other treatments in order to kind of mitigate the symptoms, which apparently causes quite a lot of issues because GPs feel like they don't want to go rogue. They don't want to take an intensive heart medication for a dysautonomic condition, and they can be quite reluctant about prescribing people things like that. But this guy was like, yeah, you need to go on beta blockers right away, in order to slow the heart rate down. He also said you need to eat more salt, and I was like, great. Eat more salt and drink a ton of water. And the explanation, if you're following along with the science, is that because I do have a lower blood volume, now I need to top up those fluids. So I drink like 6-7 litres of water a day now. And because I'm topping up the liquids, I also need to top up the salt, in order to like not get as dizzy and nauseous as I would otherwise. And part of that like change in dietary requirements also means that I can't have like full meals. I just, like a normal person would usually have like breakfast, lunch and dinner and maybe like 1 or 2 snacks in between there. Now I need to have like only snacks throughout the day, like but closer together, like just constant little bits, in order to like keep my energy up. And the explanation for that is that when a normal person eats food, their body takes like a bit of energy to digest it, but because my nervous system is messed up, my body takes like way too much energy to digest, and that can cause like an instant crash, like problems with fatigue. And just like that one conversation, I think maybe we were there for like 45 minutes, made the entire previous 12 months make so much sense. No one told me I needed to drink the most water in the world. No one told me I couldn't have breakfast, lunch and dinner, that I only needed to eat snacks. No one told me I needed to slow my heart rate down on purpose, which sounds like such a dramatic, invasive thing to do. No one told me I needed to eat salt. Like, it was just a horrible mystery that, of course, like you can't figure that shit out on your own, and it upsets me that the doctor couldn't figure it out either. And I appreciate the doctors are under a lot of stress and have more patience per person than ever. But like, If 0.2% of the population have something, you should maybe know what it is. I should maybe know what it is. I wish I'd have known what it was before this so I could, like, look out for it. I wish, you know, the people around me had known what POTS was so that when I got sick, they could say, oh, maybe that's POTS. Like, man, yeah.
Just knowing what to identify, I guess. Like, I mean, I think it's crazy that you went to your GP and kind of said, it could be this, and they went, no, it's probably not.
It's probably not
so rare. Oh, it takes 6 months. And it was.
It was. And I never followed up with that because I was just gone. My head was gone. And so we left that appointment. I think it was the 30th of January this year. I was skipping. I mean, I wasn't on medication yet, but I was skipping. I was like, oh my God. I felt like the world had changed. I felt like everything had been coloured in or something. Like, I felt also validated, which I know people say when they get a diagnosis they feel validated. Like, it is such an emotional thing. I'd had a year of myself doubting that I was as sick as I was because I couldn't, like, no one could put the finger on it. I was like, why am I this tired? Because it's not even tiredness, it's like pain. I was like, my bones feel like bruised. Everything feels terrible. I can't get out of bed. Once I'm in bed, I can't get up. I can't think straight. Like, all of this just mess, like, getting out of touch with reality. I can't say that I doubted myself, but I was worried that other people thought that I was, like, putting it on or something. I was worried that it wasn't anything specific and I would never find an answer for it. And for a doctor to just do one simple test to show me the numbers as he's doing it so that I could see what was happening inside my body. A test which also I could have done at home if I knew what it was. It made me feel like I wasn't crazy. And I felt like I, like, came back into my body. It's so dramatic.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it makes sense though. Like, it's like, it must have been affirming, and like the way that, I don't know, the way that you'd been feeling all that year, it must have felt like affirming that you weren't being dramatic, and also, it just must have been like a really emotional appointment. And I bet you that handsome doctor had so many of those where he was just like, what a good day for him as a medical professional, you know what I mean?
Oh my God, yes.
Like, when he dies, his obituary is going to mention that, I reckon. That must be like a life highlight, surely.
But no, but I mean, like, COVID has made so many people ill. Like, and so many of those people are still trying to figure out what their version of long COVID is. He must just do that all day, every day.
Crazy.
He must be like, you've got lung damage, you have got chronic fatigue, you have got POTS, you have got something wrong with your stomach, you've got something wrong with your skin, you have a skin condition. Like, it splits out in, like, a branching narrative for people, and he's just telling them which branch they're on instead of people feeling as lost and yeah, directionless as I did. It was horrible. So I had the diagnosis. He wrote a letter to my GP saying, like, she needs to go on beta blockers. I wait a few days because this bureaucracy takes time. I call my GP. I say, have you had a letter from the long COVID clinic? And they said yes. And I said, okay, well, I need to go on beta blockers. And he said, why? I said, because I've got postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, POTS. And he said, what's that? And I was like, oh my God.
This sounds like the problem with GPs, right? Like, it's just so generalised, literal general practice that it's just, what's the point of you? Like, it's just too general that there's no specific, all they're really good for is prescribing antibiotics.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, a switch had flipped in me. And now I was like, I'm going to school you. I'm going to fucking school you on what this is. And I'm going to get the medication that I need. So I get the beta blockers. I take a beta blocker and I feel like literally the second I take it, I'm like, something's changed. And that evening, I said to Michael, I was like, should we go to the offie? Should we go to the offie? This is a huge thing for me to say, because I had been to the offie once or twice in the past 12 months, which is at the end of our road. And both times I'd been had knocked me out for like 2 days at a time. It was that difficult to do anything. There was such a cost for every single thing I tried to do, I would have to pay for. And we were walking really slowly. And I just looked at him and I remember saying, I feel like my heart has gone. Like, I feel like my heart isn't there anymore because it's so quiet. I hadn't realised how bad my chest had been. Like, it had gotten genuinely so normal for me to have like a max heart rate at all times that I thought that was normal. And as soon as the beta blocker like dropped my heart rate down, the heart was gone again. And I was like, oh yeah, before I got sick I couldn't feel my heart unless I was doing some exercise. Like, the heart, I generally sat there day to day, I wouldn't think about my heart in my chest. It was incredible. And we walked to the shop and we got like a glass bottle of Coke, and then we walked back home, and it felt doable. And I thought, oh my god. I had like a really bad headache while the medication adjusted. But I was just so excited. I couldn't stop telling people. I remember like telling family and friends, like, oh my god, I've got a diagnosis, I've got a heart condition. Like, it was like the best thing in the world. Like, it's not good news. None of this is good. But it feels relatively so amazing to have.
It's the context.
Have it,
right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, I think I remember you sending me like a PDF leaflet, and I remember feeling this like I felt that like I don't know, I felt like relief, like, oh my god, like it's got a name.
It's got
like
a name.
That's what it is. I felt like it's the relief of being able to identify something.
Yeah.
Like, the unknown is terrifying when you don't know what it is. That's like it's just batshit chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hectic. But like being able to identify something, like drawing a line over it, that feels good. Mm-hmm. And that's the context, right? Like, you know what it is.
Exactly. It was huge. And it was really nice to like have a nice thing to tell people. Like, to have good news to share after being all doom and gloom for 12 months. And it made such a difference then in the months following, that I knew what I could and couldn't do physically. I knew I couldn't stand up for too long because my body doesn't allow that anymore. I knew that I couldn't eat full meals. I knew that I did get to eat lovely, beautiful snacks all day instead. I knew that I could try compression stockings and compression tights to help circulation. I knew that there was a reason when I forgot things or I couldn't like process things quickly, and I knew that like the fatigue wasn't going to stop. I knew that, as you know, there will still be days when I struggle with all of the symptoms that totally dominated 2021, because I have like this thorough chronic illness that affects every part of my body, so like I can't always win. And I definitely felt that like as the summer approached, like as the weather was getting hotter, like I was starting to get really starting to find it really difficult to think again, and having to like avoid the sun. Like I've always been someone who like lies out in the sun so that all the freckles come out and I get a tan, and now I'm like, get the fuck away from me. I don't want the sun. I will be pale forever. Because I just can't, I know that I can't handle it anymore, and I've like conceded that. Crazy.
It is. But it's also like crazy, but it shouldn't feel crazy because people should know what this is. This should be a recognisable thing. You're right. What's happened since that diagnosis?
So since that diagnosis, yeah, as I said, kind of knew what to look out for. I started to be able to like just do more things. I feel like it took me a while to want to do more things. I think only maybe in the past month have I like sincerely wanted to do more things. It's like someone had unlocked the prison gates and I could see that the door was open, but I was like just not ready to like run out the doors. I didn't think I could. I was so scared of upsetting the limits of my body any more than like, because for a full year I'd been conditioned with the reality that every time I did something I would have to pay for it, like physically. I was like, even if I do go outside, like something might happen. If I stand up for too long, I'm gonna faint. If I mess up and I don't eat regularly enough, I might faint. Like if I mess up my posture and positions, I'm gonna have leg pain. If it gets too hot, like I was like, oh, I'll just stay here where I am in the house where it's safe, where all the things I need are, where I can drink 8 litres of water and there's a toilet right next to me. Like I was like, if I go out in general public, what if I can't find a toilet, like, and I've got to drink all this water? It's just all this is legit, like the logistics of having this condition and starting to go outside. Like I couldn't compute it, and I like sort of just didn't want to take the risk. And then we got an email from Johnny Vegas or his team. And then shit needed to fucking fast forward because this man wanted us to be on a Channel 4 documentary about ceramics or something. And I was like,
such a loopy element to the story. Like this feels
such a loopy element. I was like definitely not ready to say yes to this email. Because this email was like, come to London to film something. But at the same time, I was so high on the joy of being on beta blockers, and I hadn't seen Zarina for 2 years. I hadn't left Liverpool in since before the pandemic. Like the whole thing, I just thought, fuck it. And I didn't say fuck it. I said, I really want to do this thing, but I can't. And I was speaking to like this WhatsApp group I'm in of a few people with long COVID, and they all happened to be based in London. And one of them said to me, you could do it if you wanted. And here's how. And as a group, they sort of like painted this plan to me. They were like, if you get the train and you get a taxi to the train station, and then I will come and pick you up with my mum in the car, and then you can stay in our house, which is right next to Euston, and then you can ask Channel 4 to pay for taxis to get there, and then for taxis to get back, and then you can just rest for 24 hours, or 48 hours, or 72, depending on how fucked it makes you feel. And then you can go home, just get an open return, and travel when you're ready. And suddenly I was like, that's when I said fuck it. I was like, let's do it. Like the support of knowing that I would be staying in another household where long COVID was known, and people were used to talking about bodies and needs and slowness. It felt like it felt comfortable, and I felt confident, and yeah, we did that. And that was like a whirlwind week of weirdness and trying to be like a professional and running on adrenaline and then feeling the crash afterwards, and trying to manage like snacks and water and salt intake and medication and temperature and not standing up for too long and all that shit. Like, okay, it was like my first practice, and it went fairly well. I came home, I felt like very relieved to be home. And then I think I started to feel like, okay, maybe I can leave my cell a bit more. I can maybe go to town for an eye test. I'll go and get some new glasses. I'll get the bus on my own. I'm very exciting. And then more recently, I've been able to like go for dinner with a friend and come home. And it is all feeling like the world is opening up again. And very, like, it's not like linear. It's kind of hard. I feel like I've had to build up muscle strength to even be able to do things again and see how long I can walk for. Like, I'm still having crashes, I'm still having confusion and brain fog and all that good stuff, muscle pain every so often. And I think that London trip was actually like really integral in me learning how to ask for help. It's weird. It's like, so I've been to London twice this year. So I went for that Johnny Vegas trip, and then I came back down to see you because we had some important secret meetings with publishers for a secret book that we are definitely not writing. And both times I feel like I'm putting myself into situations where I'm like, Gabrielle, you need to just speak up. You need to like channel the confidence that you used to have, and you need to just ask for help. Like, and it not be like, no, it's not that it's embarrassing. It's more like, I don't want to inconvenience people. That's my trouble with it. And also because it's like an illness that's inside of me and affects my heart and my brain and my blood and all that stuff. I'm worried that if I ask for help and I look quote unquote normal, that someone isn't going to want to give me the help because they're not going to think that I'm sick or that I need anything. So having to overcome that, which feels like a fucking weirdly privileged disability problem to have, because some people have visible disabilities and get more stick for that. That's been weird. Like, weird, but then so good when I do ask for help and I get it, and my life is made more comfortable because of it. And it's not like I'm getting any bonus treatment from the world. It's like, it's just like making up for all the shit that I've lost or that I have to deal with every day now. Like the last time I came to London, it was so rough getting the train there and getting out of Euston and getting to the place I was staying in. It was just like, fuck, that really took it out of me. And I was sort of dreading the journey home because it was during the heat wave, and it was just like, oh man, Euston. I even looked on Twitter before I went to the station. It was full of people. Like, every inch of the station was like people stood up. And I thought, I'm going to have to go and stand up with those people and I'm going to die. It's like, I'm going to die in Euston. I'm going to be on BBC News, 28-year-old woman dies waiting for train in Euston. And
that's don't make that's not
it's not funny. It is a bit
for
funny.
Context, it was that 40-degree heatwave week, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like the
death
they
week.
stopped the trains.
So bad.
The trains stopped because the rails were warping on the tracks, weren't they?
So dramatic of the rails. So I was dreading the journey home, and then I just fucking remembered, I was like, there's a mobility assistance thing in Euston Station. I've walked past it like a million times, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna ask them. And I went in and I just said, can I get on the buggy to the train? Like, I can't stand up and wait. I was like, even if they just said no, I was like, can I just sit here and wait for the train then? I was so nervous about like the competition to get a place on the train because I had an open return and I didn't have a booked seat. And the guy, like, obviously he just didn't ask any questions. He was like, yeah, what train do you want to get on? And then he said to me, he was like, we get the platform number before everyone else. So if you just wait there, someone will come and collect you. And someone came, someone took my bags off me, put me on a buggy, and then drove me past all this crowd. And I was the first person on the train. And then I was with like a woman who was blind, and I was with someone else, and I didn't know what their disability was or mobility needs. And all three of us were just sat there having a chat. And I just thought like, oh man, like, first of all, like, happy for me that I did it, but also like happy that that service was there. And also thinking, where else are services like that I should be asking, I should be taking up the offer, because it was such a relief. Yeah. So weird. And also I notice more now, like, where the help isn't there. Like, where could be more accessible. Where is inaccessible, I should say. Like, for example, you go to the pharmacy to get your beta blockers, and there's a massive queue of people, and there's 2 chairs, and those chairs are taken by people who I assume also need them. Like, in that situation, is the like a social thing, or a way to say, okay, I can't queue for long, can I please go to the front of the queue? Or a way to, like, why are there not more chairs? You know, just moments like that, like at the post office. Why are there not more chairs? Basically, I can't queue anymore, and it's stressing me out. Tesco, like, all of these random little places, like, I'm trying to re-enter society, and I just keep thinking, if I get caught in a queue, not that I'm gonna die, but like, it's gonna stress me the fuck out. The longer I stand up for, the faster my heart rate gets, the hotter I get, the more breathless I get. And then when I get home, the more like fucked I'm gonna be, because I've like gone through that. And that's even with beta blockers. Because, you know, my resting heart rate before going on medication was 92, and it was going up to like 130 odd. My resting heart rate now is 60, but it still jumps the 30 every time I do stuff. So it's not the medication I'm on reduces the jump in any way. It just makes the starting line a lot lower, which doesn't sound ideal. I wish that the jump didn't happen, but you know, like, these are the things that I think about now on a daily basis, and it like really ties me in knots sometimes. Yeah.
I have a question. There are many things that I think are crazy about this, and I don't know, I know that this has like spun you, like, so I'm using the word recovery really tentatively, but how do you feel about recovery with like 4 quote marks around it?
Yeah, I think like I took Coco to the vets this week, and there was someone I knew there, and they like looked at me and were like, have you still got long COVID? And I was like, yeah. And I said, it's given me a heart condition, because I just use heart condition because like otherwise I would have to send people this 1 hour long podcast to explain what the fuck it is. And they said, you know, is that temporary, or are you gonna have that forever? And I was like, I don't know. And they just looked really, you know, like, oh god, this person is like it's like this person is marked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels like a hectic thing to kind of say to people. Like, yeah,
it does. It feels really like I've gone in at the deep end.
But also, who cares? Like,
I know. It's just like not casual for like the vet's waiting room. Do you know what I mean? Part of me is excited about the change in what I'm able to do right now compared to last year. This time last year, I thought like that was it for my life. I was like, I live in this house now. I'm hidden away from society, and I'm just gonna write things, and I'm gonna try not to go any more madder than I have done, holding on for dear life. I never thought that I'd get to go to London. I just couldn't see past it because it was, and all of this sounds like I'm being melodramatic, but I think if you had seen and felt the way I looked and felt last year, you would be like, okay, fair enough. Maybe she will never go to London again. Maybe she will never get to travel or see friends in a way that doesn't feel like horrifically exhausting. I really feel grateful that I can like enjoy things again and go places. I feel like I know what I've got to do now. Like I know what I've been like tasked with. It's just like I'm not getting my hopes up about a full recovery. If that, and I don't think that's like a bad thing to say. I saw this tweet the other day, someone called Natalia Hodgins, who said, "Last year when I started identifying openly as disabled, a friend said to me, 'So what? That's it then? You're just gonna stop trying to get better?' And let me tell you, I've never felt so much rage towards another person." This person has ME. So the reply says, "Life with ME has taught me about quality of life, and I'll never stop trying to improve this. But when I think about all the time, energy and money spent on practitioners and treatment, I want to cry. Seeking a cure at all cost is no way to live. Finding balance is not giving up. Disability has only ever delivered positives to me. Community, opportunities, identity, and friends. Compared to sickness, which strips away so much of who I am. But from my friend's point of view, it was much better for me to be mysteriously sick with potential to recover than to just be disabled." And that feels kind of close to how I feel. I mean, I don't think disability has only delivered positives, because like I'm sat here right now and my legs hurt and my back is hurting because 2 days ago I went to a restaurant and the chairs were wooden and I've just been in pain since then.
Yeah.
Like
We
all
hate
this
chairs
bullshit.
as well.
We hate this. But there's something about that switch. Like last year, in my like mysterious illness phase, people were sending me links all the time, especially like people who follow the White Pube were sending me links to like, oh, you should try this diet. Apparently antihistamines change everything. Apparently antihistamines fuck you up. Apparently this is the special thing you have to do if you like howl at the moon. And it like riled me up so much.
Ginger tea. It was always ginger tea.
As if I had any energy to try any of this shit. I was like dead. And now that I've got a thing, all those messages have stopped. The only messages I get now are from people who also have POTS, who are like, oh my God, I've got it as well, or I had COVID and now I've been diagnosed. We had one message from someone who said, because of the content that we'd put out where we described what POTS was, they were able to go to their doctor and they have now got a diagnosis because we helped inform them. So God knows what a podcast episode that's like the full explanation is going to do. I think, yeah, like I'm not banking on getting better, but I'm now feel more motivated to try and like enjoy the new limits, which is nice.
That's a lovely way
That's
of
nice.
putting it. I really like that.
It's shit that there are any limits. I didn't used to have any limits, but now I'm like, okay. And I this is so cheesy. You know the like video of Drew Barrymore in the rain? It went viral like a few weeks ago. And
Yes.
she was like, just like, like rain pouring all over her. And she's just so happy, like a little kid. The other day, I was walking outside and I had like a short sleeve t-shirt on and it started raining. And I felt the same way. And I know that a lot of people are going to feel this way after like a shitty heatwave death summer. But I felt it because like I hadn't felt rain in so long. I was like, I forgot what weather felt like. I forgot that it sort of like tickles. I was like, oh my God, the rain's tickling. I was like, oh, I was listening to music and my headphones were getting wet and I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to really enjoy this moment.
Oh, you were having a Natasha Bedingfield Feel the rain on your skin. No one else
Oh
can
my
feel it
God.
for you. Only you can let it in.
That, but I look like Drew Barrymore, and I'm like in the street.
That's really beautiful. That's like a...
Those things are really nice, and it feels like there's more of a like a handbook to give other people. Like, for example, when I came to London last, I stayed with Zarina's mum and sister, and like, you asked me, you know, what food should mum get in for you, and you asked me at a time when I just couldn't think, so I just sent you a list. I am like a listicle of like best snacks for pots people, and it was like popcorn and olives, and I don't know what else was on the list, but your mum then just went and got all the things on the list. It was like, I'm so glad that I can do that now, because if you'd have asked me last year, you know, what do you want us to get in, I would have been like, toast, I don't know. Just toast. Like, I was so depressed. I don't think I'm depressed anymore. That's a big thing. I think, like, yeah, life just feels different. It doesn't feel great, but it feels a lot better. And yeah, living in this like space of, okay, I'm just gonna try and do more. I'm gonna like see how far I can walk now. That's the level that I'm at. I'm not like, okay, now what's the cure for POTS? I'm just thinking, can I walk to Tesco and back, or will I have to get a taxi on the way back? But I'll try it, let's see. Like, those are the little things that I'm thinking about, because like a lot of POTS advice actually is like to do not necessarily exercise, because POTS also comes with exercise intolerance, because, you know, you're overexerting yourself, your heart rate is going crazy, and then you have to then enjoy a big crash afterwards. So you have to be really careful about what you do. But a lot of advice is that you should try and strengthen your legs, because that will help pump blood around your body and stop it getting pooled in your legs as much. And I was like really excited to do that, because I used to fucking love exercise. And just as I was like getting into the swing of it, the weather got too hot. So every day I tried to do it, I couldn't do anything else that day. I would, you know, do half an hour of like little things in the garden to try and strengthen my legs, and then I literally couldn't do anything else. And that just felt like, again, like, why is this a thing I have to go through? So I'm now waiting for the weather to get slightly cooler so I can like try those little things again and see how I feel.
Do you know what you should be able to do?
You
know how like birds migrate for the winter?
Yeah.
You should be
I
able to...
cannot wait for winter.
You should be able to migrate for the summer. Like, you should be able to just fuck off.
I should be able to migrate for the summer, but I also should get like a free gym membership so I can do that somewhere that's air conditioned. I should get compensation from Boris Johnson's shitty government for getting COVID in the first place, that has then become, you know, I won the lottery, I got like a chronic illness off the back of it.
It should be like a big fat grand for every time you thought, fuck this. Like, if you add up the amount of times you thought, fuck this, fuck my life, you should get like a grand for that. Yeah.
I can't believe I have to pay for prescriptions. That's another thing. I should not be taxed for being ill.
I hate this country. Wow.
Maybe a good way to end this is to mention one thing that the government has done for me. You know, after the healthcare system failed for a year and then one doctor knew what the fuck was going on. So in 2021, when I was not with it, I applied for PIP, which is Personal Independence Payments, which is government support for people who are too sick to, look after themselves, really. I wasn't successful with the PIP application, but the thing is, no one is on the first one, and I just, didn't have the mental capacity to reapply. I just took it as such a fuck you from everything that had gone on that year to be you're not sick enough, so you don't get a little tiny bit of money that wouldn't even matter much anyway, because of how small it is. And I got really upset about it. And then a friend messaged and said, okay, if you didn't get PIP, you should apply for access to work instead. And access to work is another scheme from the government that essentially is like, okay, sick and disabled people exist in this country, and what we care about is the economy. So we want those sick and disabled people to go the fuck to work, and we're gonna make sure they get there. That's how I see it. So, for example, if you have a disability and you need taxis to get to work because the bus isn't viable, then you can apply for a taxi budget. If you need special equipment at your workplace, you can apply to pay for that. And I read up on access to work, and I think it was maybe January of this year, I just wrote this really hasty application, half thinking like, this isn't going to go anywhere because nothing has gone anywhere. My diagnosis, my PIP application, I'd lost all faith in everything. I was like, fuck it. I on the application I wrote, I need an air conditioner. I need my house to be air conditioned.
But you do.
Because I was so worried about the upcoming summer based on what the last summer had done to me. And I put that application in, forgot about it. It's just like an online form. Easy, done. And then about 1 month ago, I got an email from someone from the DWP who said, hello, I am the caseworker on your application. Can we have a phone call? And I was like, ooh, interesting. And she asked me what I needed to work. She asked me about my job, and she also said, okay, within that, like, yeah, what can you not necessarily do on your own anymore, or what adaptations could you make in order to make your work easier? And I've got an office, but I've not been there because you have to get the bus to get there, and it's just a nightmare. And by the time I've like used my energy on the bus to get to the office, I'm fucked, and then I can't really do any work. And then the bus back, and then it's just like, no, then I can't go the next day. I was like, but then I can't afford taxis, because a taxi there and back is like £7 each way. So I said that to her. I was like, taxis to an office would be great. I said I would like a better chair to work at because of the dysautonomia. I just feel I'm like really weirdly sensitive to pain. And that means, yeah, like the example I said a little bit ago, that I sat on a really hard wooden chair and I've been in pain for 2 days. Like, it's just bullshit like that. So I said, a nice chair. Not like just because I want a nice chair, just because I want to be able to write for a long periods of time, and a chair might help. Because of POTS and like blood pooling and stuff like that, she suggested a table that goes up and down, like the electric tables, sit-stand tables. And I was like, I don't know if that's a really good idea or a really bad one, because like me sitting and standing is like, that's not the one, and me standing for a long time is not the one, but actually me sitting for long times also isn't the one, so I don't know which is the one. I was like, I would like to try it. And then the big thing that I spoke to her about on the phone is a support worker. So Zarina knows this because we work together. My ability to comprehend emails is tenuous. Here's a embarrassing example that I think this podcast goes out the day after the event happens, so it's fine.
It will have been fine. It was fine.
It was fine, hopefully. So I got an email from an arts organisation in Birmingham saying like, okay, cool, hi, would you like to come and do a panel? And we're doing this panel about art and cities, and it's going to be good and cool, would you like to do it? And I thought, you know what, I've not done anything independent like that, and maybe that is a good little experiment to, again, test my limits and also see if it's something that I like can comfortably get through enough to enjoy. And it, it's a job, so I would get to earn a little bit of money. And I said to them, is it possible for me to come up the day before? Like, would they pay for a hotel so that I can come up, rest, and then get a taxi to the venue the next day? And hopefully that means I'll be like on my best form rather than coming up the same day and being all whacked out and in pain because of him. And they were amazing. They were like, yep, we'll do that. That's, anything else? Is there anything else you need? Oh, it was so bad. So I said, is there any chance I can see the questions for the panel? Because, in the past I would have been able to just like think on my feet and like say clever things. I don't know if they were clever, but say relatively clever things and, be a person on a panel. And both of the people I was emailing were sort of like, no. Like, they were like, well, maybe we can give you like some, but like, no. And I was a bit confused because they'd been so accommodating up until that point, and I was like, what? And they said, well, would you like to jump on a phone call? And I said yes. And on the phone call, this absolutely lovely person was like, okay, well, I can run you through how the event is going to go if you want. Someone from the museum is going to introduce the event, and then they'll hand over to you to chair. And I was like, they'll hand over to me to chair? I just had to pretend on the phone call that I knew what the fuck was going on. But obviously, I think she knew that I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was on the panel as a guest that was going to be interviewed, and that's why I thought it was going to be easy. I very quickly grabbed the email back up, and it literally says, we would like to invite you to chair a panel talk. I cannot be trusted. I feel like I have gone rogue. So this person has now realised that the chair of the event didn't realise that they were chairing. That's why they couldn't fucking give me the questions, because I'm asking the questions. Why would imagine? Oh, it's so bad.
It's not that bad. You missed.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it's bad in the sense like that. It's a good example of how my brain is functioning at the moment. It's just that there's a stinger. Like, that wasn't even the worst of it. So at the end of the phone call, I said, well, thank you so much for everything. I'll see you next week. Oh, no, I won't see you next week, will I? It's not next week. I'll see you, soon in Birmingham. And then I put the phone down, and then I was like, wait. And I, like, got my calendar up, and it is next week. So this person not only, has found out that the chair of their event didn't know that they were the chair of the event, but also they think it's not next week, and it is.
But you can just pretend that was a really funny joke.
Oh man,
you can just be like, let's just mess and turn up in Birmingham next week. I do.
It's like something happened when I got COVID and got POTS. Like the numbers and the details and the logistics and the organisation and all the stuff that used to be like so seamless, like that trick has gone. And I genuinely like need someone to look over my homework. So I was explaining that to the access to work caseworker on the phone, and she fully got it, and she said, okay, well, there's a form that you can fill in if you tell us like what you would need a support worker to do and how many hours you would need them per week. So I, with the absolutely incredible help of Abby Palmer, who spoke me through every single phase of this application, and yeah, I literally couldn't have done it without Abby, was able to fill in what I would need from a support worker. And I mentioned, like, in the same way that it's good for us to share funding applications with each other and all of the kind of difficult stuff in order to access like money or opportunities, like that kind of file sharing is radical and cool and nice. When it comes to access requirements, I think a lot of imagination is needed, because like sometimes I know what the problems are, but I don't know what support would even fix them. So being able to see someone else's application and what they need is so helpful to think, okay, well, what would my equivalent of that be? Huge. So I filled in a support worker form. I also got quotes for taxis from the journey from my house to the office, and I've also had an assessment with them about like my workplace, which is quite different because I'm self-employed, so they were just asking me about my little desk at home, and then I got a call off them saying, so yeah, we've granted your access to work application, and it was so like so unexpected because I just didn't think anything could go right, that I just didn't register what she'd said. And basically it means now that I can pay someone 8 hours a week via DWP. So I think I have to invoice them for the money, and then the person who I employ as a support worker invoices me. And then they're also providing me with all of this office equipment, including the sit stand desk and the fancy chair and a leg rest and some text to speech software and speech to text. All of the stuff that I think, wow, this is actually going to be like very helpful. And I've got a taxi budget as well, which, oh man, full disclosure, they asked me for taxi quotes, 3 taxi quotes, right? So I called up all these different operators, and most of them were like £6 to £7, and then one of them was £5.90 to £7. And I wrote those 3 quotes. So they've given me the £5.90 quote, as in like the lowest one. And the way it works is you have to take the cost of the bus, which is £2.30 off it. So whatever £5.90 minus £2.30 is, they will give me that amount per taxi journey. And I tested it this week and I got a taxi there and it was £7. And it's like I don't want to sniff too much at it because it's like a little bit of money, but at the same time...
No, do you know what? No, you can sniff at that. Because I think that's just like so... Oh, can you imagine if you had a friend like that?
So tight. Yeah.
So stingy. Like, I can't be dealing with that. But like, that just is... And you said this when you introduced like access to work as like an idea, right? Like as a thing that you applied for. But it does just sum up a lot about this government. They're so much more willing to provide little bits of money to help you go to work, but not to like live an independent life. Like, and they're so happy to like, oh yeah, we'll give you the money for the taxi minus the money that you just spent already. Oh, it's £2. £2. Oh, are you fucking crazy? Imagine if you had a friend like that was like, can you just send me the £2.70 for the Wagamamas last night?
Exactly.
Are you mad?
No, I know. And the thing is, it happened with the support workers as well. So I had to give them 3 quotes for support workers and they've gone with the lowest one. So I wish I'd have known that. Not that I could, it's too late, it's fine, whatever. So I'm saying it now at the very end of a podcast so that anyone listening who is thinking the same knows that now as well. I am about to get that all kicked into gear and I'm grateful for it. It is kind of interesting. It's like you say, like none of that money necessarily goes to me. Like the money's going to a support worker and the money is going on the equipment and to the taxi ranks, but none of it is to help me, you know. None of it's a consolation prize for getting disabled because of a shitty government. So yeah, I think that's sort of like that's the full update. I still have shit days, I still have shit hours, my brain is so out of it, my sleeping pattern is still upside down, weird hours. Cold hands, yeah, I'm having issues now where like when I sit down to write my fingers get icy cold and the tip of my nose. So like good update, good to know that shit's better, good to know that I'm doing more stuff, but also heart condition, not so good. And that's it. So hopefully you know what POTS is now, dear listener. Yeah, and if you have listened to the end of this, I really appreciate it. Like, I used to listen to little tiny bits or read little bits about like disability and sickness before I got sick, and I think it's just so important that we all know. I just think, yeah, raising awareness about things, even though that's like a cheesy thing to do, just could genuinely change like the fabric of like how we treat each other in society, knowing that so many people have invisible illnesses, knowing that if we are kind and very patient with each other, then we can all live a more comfortable, healthy, pain-free life. Ish. And that's the end of it. If you have enjoyed this episode, please share it, especially if you know any COVID people. Zarina and I make our living via Patreon. So if you want to sign up to be a Patreon member and give as little as £1 a month, that would make a big difference. We have like lots of readers and lots of listeners and lots of viewers, and if every single one of those gave like £1 a month, then I wouldn't fucking need to do access to work, baby. But I do, because not everyone does. I say all that knowing that there's a cost of living crisis. Please do not put yourself out. I just declare those messages for the people who listen who are very rich. If you're very rich, and there are a few of them because we know then
who you
those
are.
People should become the patrons, especially on behalf of the people who can't.
Offsetting. So it's offsetting and subsidising. So we don't have to put up a paywall.
True.
Which we would hate and probably not do anyway. But the threat's still there in case.
The threat. We have a like Discord server for anyone who's either become a regular Patreon supporter or a regular Coffee supporter or done a one-off donation on Coffee or PayPal. All the links to that will be in the show notes.
And if you want to go to Patreon and you don't want to look at the show notes, then it's just patreon.com/the White Pube.
Yeah, cool. Okay, this has been a hefty episode. The transcription for this is on the White Pube as well. If you want to go back and find any information, send us a message or an email if you've got any questions or if you think we left anything out. And we will see you on the next episode of the podcast.
Yeah, boy.
Bye.
Bye.
White